Hi, I'm Ken Baker from Green Pro Solutions. I'm here with Sagona Landscaping Company from Staten Island, New York. We just built them a unit. It's a skid unit. I'm going to give some instructions on how to use this very simplified unit. This particular unit has a Honda GX30. It's a 22 horsepower motor. It has a Delta 75 pump. It's 590 PSI. It would put out about 22 gallons a minute, and the height is around 40 to 50 feet on a really good day. The operation of this system is very, very simple. You basically have a motor, pump, and a reel, and then you have your major nursing tank, which is a 350 gallon tank. Right here you have your regulator, which basically regulates your pressure. After you start your motor, you want to turn your gas on, set your throttle, and then you can do your acceleration to get it up to 3,200 psi. That's typically where you need to be, because this particular motor actually has a 13 amp charging system. It charges your battery. It doesn't trickle, it charges your battery as the motor's running. So what's important is when you're running this motor is getting it up to 3,200 RPMs. That is the ultimate, while you're pulling in your reel, it drains a lot of energy from your battery. Very, very critical is when you, again, I'm going to re-emphasize, when you're pulling in your reel, you need to run your motor and keep it at a higher RPMs. That's the only way it's really going to recharge that. So part of that is running. There also on the engine has a tachometer here, which tells you how many hours that the motor is running. That can help you in a number of different ways. Udor recommends every 500 hours or every season to service the pump, rechange the oil, the valves, and the diaphragms in that. Other is the changing of the oil. Reminds you to change your oil and to service the engine itself. So the other thing it has, it also tells you again, as I mentioned earlier, your tachometer. It tells you the speed of your motor. What's important about that is Honda is very finicky with running it. If you're running it for short bursts of time, 10-15 minute average, the jobs are, that the engine doesn't run long enough. And what happens is the carb that builds on the spark plug doesn't burn off. So it's very important in between every other job to let the engine run for 20-30 minutes at a time at high RPMs. That means it'll burn the carb off the spark plug. If you don't, it's going to misfire, it won't start, and you're going to wonder why your brand new unit doesn't work. So that's number one, is you need to allow that engine run long enough for it to get hot enough to burn the carb off the spark plug. Number two with these Honda motors is that it's so critical in between jobs is to shut your fuel off in between every stop. Even though it's 5 minutes down the road, it's imperative that you shut this fuel off every time. We have an indication here, caution, for have you to do that. What happens if you don't, the float in here bounces around and lets gasoline into your oil, which creates a vapor and mixes with the gas. Your engine runs very rich, and at times it will blow smoke. And eventually what you're going to call is vapor lock, is that your gasoline has a vapor, and it gets in between the piston of the motor and the head, and it prevents it from the motor from starting. The way to correct that is you release your spark plug, take it out, it releases the vapor, put the spark plug back in, then you're going to have to change your oil because you have a very high rich concentration of gasoline in with your oil. So that is imperative, again, that you shut this off in between each one. It has its own remote gas tank right here. It holds about 2 gallons, depending on your RPMs, depending on what your load of it. The unit can be run for 2 or 3 days without having to fill up. It has a reel. It's a Henne reel, one of the best in the industry. It currently has a 3/8 600 psi rating on it, and it has 300 feet on it. So you'll be able to pull this out 300 feet and contain up to 600 psi. Again, the pump is rated at 590 psi, so you have plenty of margin for this hose. This reel has a automatic remote button to pull in your hose here, and you can use the ambidextrous either side, either way, depending on how you want to pull it in. The reel itself also has up here is a button it's a breaker for the reel that you're able to, if the reel ever gets caught around a shrub or a tree, around a tire, it would stop and the breaker would blow. So all you needed to go is up and reset that button on that black box and you're good to go. So you only have one valve in this, actually two valves in this entire system, and that is when your motor is running and you determine how far you want to go and how much volume you want to put out. This is what your regulator is. Right now it's disengaged in this position, very important. If you have it engaged when the motor is off and you try to start it, you're going to have a hard time starting the engine, and it puts a lot of strain, unnecessary strain on the pump. So it's very important that you keep this in a disengaged position, in this position here, when you go to start your engine. And when you go to stop your engine during running, it's very imperative that you also go from an engaged mode where you're running it, and before you shut the motor off, you want to disengage the regulator, or you end up backfiring and it's just unnecessary strain on the motor. So once you disengage the regulator, you can shut the motor off. This green dial here is basically set. You can set this for any way you want. If you're typically using 100 psi and you want 20 feet, you leave it there. All you have to do is engage and disengage. If you want distance and volume, all you have to do is crank this knob in a positive mode. There's an arrow here, and it will increase your pressure up to 590 psi. So you can leave it at 590 psi, you can leave it at 400 psi, 300, depending on if you're doing tall trees or small perennial annuals type of shrubs, boxwoods, or whatever it may be. So this is one valve that you have to work with the pump. The other is a three-way valve. When the pump is running, you can either turn it towards the reel, which will feed pressure to this, or you can feed it to turbo. What turbo is, it has a special head in the tank, and it enables to agitate the product inside that tank to keeps it solidified in the water. Depending on what kind of product you use, it just keeps it sustained. And so it's either going to be one of the two. This motor and system is very simplified. Like I said, it's a fail-safe. You can't deadhead it. And no matter what position this is in, the pump is pulling from the tank and returning to the tank at the same time. Now it does have a return on it to when the pump is pumping fluid into the pump, it's also sending it back. So when you're not using your hose, the water has to go somewhere. So don't be concerned that water is flushing back in. Where is it coming from? Or it's going to overflow. It's not going to. It just circulates the product. So the one other part of this easy system is your fill. You have your fill system here. You hook your cam coupler up here if you're going to a hydrant with a permit meter to pump out of a hydrant, or if you want to pump out of a stream pump. However it is, you can pump up to here. We also have components that you can reduce this down to a garden hose if that's all you have to fill the system with. Basically turn on your valve here and open it up. You hook your pump or whatever to this. The water will go up into this air gap system, which is a one-way flow. It goes into your tank. It will fill your tank up when you're done. You shut this off, disconnect, you're good to go. Another component of the system is a battery, which is on this side here, which you can't see here. It's a deep cycle DECA battery. It's designed to hold loads for long periods of time. We recommend that if you have this sitting over the weekend, that you will put that on a charger, not a trickle charger. You need a deep charge. So we recommend highly is after the week, if it's sitting for any period of time, off season, long weekends, holidays, put that on a charger, because it will hold a deep charge. There'll be times that people think, oh gee, I have 12 volts. It may be a soft charge, not enough to hold you throughout the day. Now there is another method that you as owner can do with this vehicle, is you can actually wire the 8-2 wire into your battery of your truck, which your alternator will charge both. That's an option that you can do later on for yourself if you choose to. So that's basically the overall function of this mobile unit. This unit is designed to come off of this truck any point in time. It's called the skid unit, and very diversified and mobile. So this is hopefully that's informative for you. This is Ken Baker at Green Post Solutions, another success story for our products and equipment.